Students all over the country are well into exams now. Living in dangerous and impoverished environments can have a negative effect on concentration. Yet matriculants at a school in Delft, one of the most crime-riddled areas in the Western Cape, have somehow found success. Now, joining me now live from Masibambisane Secondary School is our reporter Monique Motlok. Monique, very good morning to you. What's happening in that school? Of course, Delft is one of the areas affected by lots of challenges.
Good morning. Yes, indeed. Issues of gang violence and overflowing sewers are just some of the issues that the learners at Masibambisane School in Delft sometimes have to contend with on their way to school, on their way from school, and when they are at their homes. Issues of gang shootings are prevalent. Just earlier this year, a couple of months ago, in fact, in an area called Blikkiesdorp here in Delft, 9 people were shot and killed in one night. Allegedly, it was gang-related. Right now, though, we are at Masibambisane High School, where the school has managed to bring up their matric pass rate from 2017's 48.1% to 2018's 79.1%. That's more than a 30% increase. And when I spoke to Principal Kailetu Busman earlier, he was confident that this time around they are aiming for over 90, if not 100%. And we have been trying to get a hold of the principal, but he's been running around sorting out the admin because, as you know, the matriculants have buckled down and they've just started with English Paper 1 exam at 9 o'clock, and that's a 2-hour paper. It looks as if the learners are confident, though. They seemed to not let the nerves get the better of them. When we asked them as they were heading in, "Are you ready?" they said, "Yes, we're ready." So it looks as if the school has maintained that positivity despite all of the challenges outside of the school in the area.
Okay, thank you very much, Monique Motlok in Delft in the Western Cape. Now we come closer here to Johannesburg. The matric class of 2019 in El Dorado Park were moved to a study camp just a week before the exams. They had to catch up on 3 months' work. Schooling in the area was disrupted. Let's go live now to El Dorado Park Secondary School. Our reporter Tsikhohacho Moagi is standing by. Tsikhohacho, just last week it seemed like the matriculants rather, from Eldos might not be able to write their exams, but things have been resolved somewhat. What's happening there this morning?
Absolutely. Good morning, Braden. So a really quiet morning here in El Dorado Park. Totally different scenes from what we had seen just last week when students were moved from here to a camp in Tshwane. And it does seem like the hopes and the wishes of the Department of Education in Gauteng have definitely been adhered to, as they did ask for calm and for peace as these matriculants write their exams. When I did speak to the department, Steve Mabona, yesterday, he mentioned to me, Braden, that the teachers that were not part of the school, that had left the school, saying that they are being ill-treated, those teachers have now decided to come back just to ensure that these matriculants are able to write and that everything goes smoothly for them. Okay, and so far it looks like the calm will stand in Eldos. And I'm just asking another question, Tsikho, because El Dorado Park has had more than its fair share of challenges with parents, sometimes challenging decisions by the Gauteng Education Department. Absolutely, Braden. I'm just struggling to hear you quite a bit here with the wind, but definitely you are right when you say that this area has really had some issues with this particular area, with this area rather, El Dorado Park, and the high school has had issues concerning teachers not being in class. And we do understand that 3 months of schooling was definitely missed from this particular school, here where I am based today. But we understand that with the particular week that went by, where matriculants were actually in that camp in Tshwane, we are hoping and we understand that they did the best that they could just to try and catch up on a whole 3 months of schooling that has been missed.
Thank you very much in El Dorado Park. Now let's move to Parktown. Gauteng Education MEC Panyaza Lesufi will be visiting Parktown Boys High School to oversee matric exams. The school, of course, has been hit by a sexual assault scandal. Former school polo coach Colin Rex was convicted and jailed for 20 years for abusing the pupils. My colleague, that's ENC reporter Zikona Chona, is at the school this morning and she's joining us now. Zikona, very good morning to you. Well, It looks like elsewhere in the country, like in Delft, in Cape Town, and in El Dorado Park, just south of Soweto, things are calm and the exams have started. Of course, that English paper being the big one being written across the country today. What's the situation like at the Parktown Boys High?
So the MEC of Education and Gauteng has just concluded his visit to the school, and he's saying this time around he didn't want to come to the school for the wrong reasons, as he has done so in the past, saying he just wants to come and wish the pupils of Parktown Boys High well ahead of their first examination, which is English Paper 1, that all the pupils that are sitting down for as we speak. They started writing around 9 o'clock this morning and saying that they are the future of this country, and this country needs the skills that they have. We spoke to the principal earlier, as you've mentioned, that this is a school that's been marred by controversy, particularly with the case of the water polo coach from the school who is now in prison for having sexual relations with pupils in the school, sexual misconduct rather. So the principal is saying that they've changed the way that they're doing things in the school, and they're having an approach where they want pupils to open up more about issues of around gender-based violence as well as violence against children. So saying that they want to encourage learners at the school to be vocal and to speak out. But Dan, I'm not alone. I'm here with people who stood for the fight against what was happening in the school and making sure that justice is served. Michelle Lobcraig of Mother Abuse Accountability and Luke Lambrecht from Women and Children Against Abuse. I think let's start here. What have we learned as a country from what transpired at Parktown Boys High?
Well, if we look at bishops, it appears very little. So I think the sadness for us standing here today is that, we spent an enormous amount of time and energy, parents, the school, the department, and now we go to Cape Town and we see there's a water polo coach who is also, there's allegations of inappropriateness, if not criminality, against children at the school. And the difficulty for us is that this must have been going on, or at least started, after this highly publicized case. So it appears that the schooling system has learned very little from what has happened here.
And for you, Michelle, as a parent, what kind of conversations should parents be having with their children around the issues of relations with teachers and how some things may be just inappropriate?
So sexual assault, grooming, showing to child pornography is a criminal act. Our children are exactly that. The adults, we're saying, we're appealing to the high courts. We're appealing to SACE, the South African Council of Educators, because it's clear the schools are not vetting who they're bringing in. It's not a child's job to stand up and say, don't touch me. At no point did the mothers give these schools, especially the boys' schools in South Africa. Again and again we're hearing children speaking out the system that's in place. And Section 54 and 1110 is very clear. If you see a friend or a coach or a teacher touching a child inappropriately, female teachers grooming and preying on our boys, you have to report it. If you don't report it, it's a criminal offence. Now, these predators are operating supported by a system. And so, as Luke said, the fact that bishops, all the noise around bishops, at the end of the day was a child preyed on sexually by an adult. Parktown, we're waiting for our executive report from Mr. Lesufi. We have not concluded this investigation. The chances of this happening again are very good. Grades College. So what we're saying as parents and as mothers, we have to educate our children to speak, but at the end of the day, they are children, and the adults in charge need to be vetted. Otherwise, the full force of the law must apply.
Now, Luke, your report on the school spoke of a culture of silence and this toxic masculinity where boys in particular, don't feel comfortable with speaking out when such things happen. And reading the bishop's case, it seems like a similar trend is happening there, where this thing is said to be going on for years without anyone speaking out. How should we be addressing the matter of sexual violence, particularly when dealing with boys?
Yeah, so the one thing I will commend Parktown for is that when it came out, they got us to come and talk to all the boys. They took us to the grade 8 camps. They got us to talk to the grade 11 leadership, who was going to become the grade 12 leadership. They made pledges to the girls. So they've created a conversation in Parktown that I think will protect the children and result in better men. When it comes to male victimness and female predators, there is no language. So the problem we have as a society is that the whole way we think about older women having sex with younger boys is that they are mad to not have wanted it. It's kind of they're lucky, not that they were preyed upon. So the language with which to even start the discussion around female predators isn't even in the public discourse. If you look at the jokes that were being made and the memes that went around, I mean, people have no concept of what it is like to be a young boy preyed on sexually by an adult woman. No concept.
Any advice for bishops on how they should handle this matter?
The children are the most important. They need to get the children's evidence. They need to look after those children. They need to tell them it wasn't their fault. Their bodies betray them. They're teenage boys. They need to make sure those kids get therapy, and they need to lay a charge against whichever adult allowed this to happen, because for years it's gone on. So look after your children, listen to what they're saying, let the full might of the law remove these predators. Every year there's new children coming into school where these predators have free access to our kids. So bishops, have the courage of your conviction, let the parents stand up, look after their sons and lay the charges and remove these predators from our schools.
So the South African Council of Educators was saying at least 90 cases of sexual misconduct in the classroom or in schools were investigated last year, and 30 of those teachers have been put on the sexual offenders list. Is that enough? What else can they do?
Look, I think you first have to be registered with SACE for SACE to have any say over you. So the big argument is this was a coach. I mean, I think the one thing was he wasn't a real teacher. He was just a coach. So they don't register with SACE. And the result is that there's no way to check them. So if you take, for example, the Bryanston High School case, which is another case of alleged sexual predator at a school, he was neither a registered teacher with SACE nor was he a registered coach with SASCOC. So there's actually nothing to hold him accountable whatsoever. And even in the disciplinary that Bryanston did, and they found him guilty in the Bryanston, that is now being appealed at the CCMA, and his name can't go onto the register because it wasn't a properly constituted legal forum. So the only way to protect your children is for you as parents to look after them yourself and to have the conversations with them. No list is going to do that, because even if I as a parent want to coach my child, I'm not allowed to go to the National Sex Offenders Register and say to them, please can I see if that coach is on the register, because I as a parent don't have that right. So that law needs to change at a minimum, and they need to broaden the Sexual Offences Act to include sexual offences against adults as well, because at the moment it's only for children and persons with disabilities. So we need to broaden it, and we need to increase access.
And the long-term impact of this, I mean, there are learners here who know this is what their school went through. It might have been them in particular, but they know someone who has gone through it. The long-term impact.
Huge. Our evidence shows from 1985, we've got men that never reach their full potential. So the children are right in Matric, and a lot of our boys have stood up and fought back. But the damage is, I'm not saying irreparable, but it's unnecessary, long-term, and it changes the child's outlook on life forever. And that's why we cannot walk away until the system is completely dismantled, and predators must know that they can't come into schools, damage our boys, and think they're going to get away with it. Our kids are having to suck it up and write Matric and carry on with life, because life doesn't allow you. Everybody says it is just life, but this is not what our boys signed up for. It's not what the parents signed up for. And the teachers and educators, and SACE in particular, you need to decide if your code of conduct allows sexual predators into your schools or not. If not, you need to remove them out of the system.
Closing remarks?
I think just to say to parents, the single greatest protective feature for your child against everything is your relationship with them, and the ability to give them a language to have difficult conversations. Because parenting is not a popularity contest. It's a very hard job, but it's the most important job you'll ever do. Look after your children.
And for you, Michelle?
That's exactly it. And they're your responsibility. And as Luke always tells us, we must have the courage of our convictions. We did not give, as mothers, the schools permission for predators to touch, fiddle, groom, and sexually assault our children. You did not get that permission, and you must answer to the law for that.
Thank you very much for your time, both of you. So they're commending Parktown Boys High for the way in which they addressed the matter when the incident did come to light. But they're calling on bishops in the Western Cape and Cape Town to say it's time to act, it's time to prioritize the safety of your pupils and make sure that they are in a safe environment to be able to speak about what has gone on there.
And we as parents must look after our children as well. It's our responsibility. Thank you very much, Zikhona Chona at the Parktown Boys High School, discussing there with those two guests there about the whole issue of trauma that children have suffered at schools like that when there's been allegations of sexual abuse.